Welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment of our program is brought to you by the Topoco Lodge, 120 acres of beautiful forest land, hiking and mountain biking trails, fishing, rafting, kayaking, a restaurant right beside the rapids of the Chiowa River. Make reservations for that, though. They got hammocks for napping, fire pits in the evening. The Topoco Lodge, where adventure and sanctuary meet. Check out topoco.com to learn more. Just a very, very impressive place to go, Topoco Lodge. All right, well, we've mainly focused on the conference only and fall, what's the word I'm looking for? Fall option for football. We've ignored spring options for football, and that is still being talked about in some places. Sports Illustrated talked to a source in the Southeastern Conference this week. Let's go ahead and put that up. I think spring is more viable than fall. Boy, that's a stunning statement from an SEC athletic director. What we have currently scheduled is not realistic. If somebody told me we could play conference only in the fall, that would be great. But I'm not sure we can play one game, let alone a full conference schedule. Ouch. Okay, that's pretty damning. In terms of spring, there are issues that go along with spring too that we all know. You've got the NFL. Do players sit out because they want to protect their draft status? Mm-hmm. What happens with signing day? Your thoughts on and then the biggest issue is, of course, if you play in the spring, what do you do the following fall? Are these college athletes really built to play 2 seasons, even shortened seasons in 1 year? What are your thoughts on the realities of moving this to fall? Obviously, the SEC AD thinks it's very possible. Lincoln Riley, the Oklahoma head coach, said a couple of weeks ago, very possible. You guys think it's a good option? I'm afraid there's just as many issues there as there are in the fall.
One person I heard, he said, well, how are we going to be sure that it's going to be any better in the spring than it is in the fall? We won't know. So that's one concern that you have. I think the Ivy League said that they were going to play 7, one of their proposals was 7 conference games, and I think starting in mid-March maybe. I think if you start in the SEC or the other conferences, I think you'd probably have to start sooner than that. Then you've got the scheduling concern about you got basketball going on and all these other baseball, all these other sports that are going on. If it's a last resort and it's the only way we can have college football, I would take it. But I think there are probably as many concerns about playing in the spring as there would be this fall.
I think so too. I think it's just a different set of problems that pop up if you're playing in the spring. I think the big thing you're going to see some kickback on is the possibility of what it does to these players health-wise to have 2 seasons in a year. I just think that's such a concern to football coaches, trainers, all those types of people, that the medical side of this is gonna look rough. And I don't think the optics of that look very good when you're trying to do this in the interest of general health, but obviously player health as much as anything. So I think I have a hard time saying everyone's going to sign off on that. But, I mean, again, there's so much money involved. That's where, at the end of the day, it comes down to that.
John, you touched on this. Is Trevor Lawrence going to play in the spring, or is he going to get ready for the NFL draft? There are a lot of players that would fit into that boat. So I think you'd have a lot of elite players that would opt not to play college in the spring, and they would focus on preparing for an NFL draft.
What happens with recruiting, Ryan? Let me ask you this one. And this is a little off topic. You weren't prepared for this. But as it stands right now, do you see there being an early signing period in December?
To me, the NCAA may not feel it has to get rid of that just because it's an option for players, not a requirement. I think you would see more players than ever not sign in December if football's not played a lot of places, if there are no in-season visits, all that stuff. So I don't think they will look at it as we need to wipe this out to take the option away from players. I do wonder about February signing day, though. That's been locked in for as long as we can remember. But do you move that back at some point, depending on the availability of visits this fall? I think that's a real possibility. So, especially if we're talking about spring football.
That's why I brought it up. That's why I asked you about December, because I was going to say, all right, so let's say you have February. All right, there is a December and a February in this scenario. I'm having problems with words today. If I just fall over, call a doctor. When it comes to the February signing period, we've never had a signing period during the season for college football. I mean, even in December, you're done with the regular season. How does that get handled? And as terms of someone who covers it, how do you see that playing out for coaches? If you are coaching in games that matter, and at the same time you're working on National Signing Day to get people inked, is that a big switch from what they do now?
It's a big switch from what they do now. I think some people would say, well, basketball has its fall and spring signing periods, and they're not really as in line with their off season as much as footballs are. So it could be done.
It's 3 or 4 kids versus
Yeah, I was gonna say
25.
It's a big difference between what basketball does and what football does. But I do think there's if in that scenario, I think it's more likely National Sign Day in February would be pushed back if you had a January to March season or something like that. I also think high school football plays a role in this. If most of the states across the country are not playing this fall and are pushing back their seasons to the spring or something like that, I think you could see it pushed back because of that too, because you want coaches to be able to evaluate players' film. And if kids aren't in school, I think a lot of that can impact it too. So there's so many variables in this. I think there is a real possibility signing day in February gets pushed back this year.
Is there going to be a chance of, do you think there would be students out there who, if their state decides they're not going to play and some other state is, do you think there will be players who say, you know what, let's move just for the next 6 months so I can go play football somewhere else?
We're already seeing players make some of those types of decisions. If you don't follow recruiting closely, Tony Grimes, a 5-star cornerback who just chose North Carolina over Georgia recently, he had the option of reclassifying to the 2020 class. He's going to enroll at North Carolina this year because of the chances of this season not happening in Virginia. So there's so many things like that to consider. And yeah, I'm already hearing of some players looking around, schools like IMG Academy in Florida, for instance. They already draw schools from players from other states all the time. You may see more of that sort of pilfering from other states this year.
Very good. All right, when we come back, how much say should college athletes have in all this? The pro players are making their own decisions, a lot of them. College kids are kind of getting told what to do. Is that right? We'll discuss. Come on back on the Sports Source, and I'll have my dictionary, so I'll be better speaking, hopefully. Come on back.